Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm really happy to have you here today. If you love romantic manhwa full of emotions, drama, and those unforgettable moments that make your heart flutter, then you're definitely in the right place. Today we're jumping into a beautiful and super intriguing story called Summer's Density. This manhwa is packed with tension, secrets, and romance that slowly pulls you in until you just can't stop watching. So trust me, you're going to love this one. Go ahead and grab your favorite snacks, get cozy, relax, and let's escape together into the world of manhwa romance. All right, let's get started. Yongsangnam-do. Haeyoung was a small town where nothing ever felt excessive, and everyone lived in peace and harmony. It was in this little town that Lee Seohui and Seungjo grew up together. And even though they weren't related by blood, it went without saying that Seohui saw him as her little brother, while Seungjo saw her as his older sister. At his bold 18, Seungjo suddenly confessed his feelings to her, and was rejected. After that, he left their small town and never returned. Exactly 6 years passed, and Seungjo suddenly came back, now as one of South Korea's leading football players. And that's how they ended up where they are now. Seungjo was 24, had already completed his military service, and earned a lot of money. But despite everything, even after all those years, now that he was a grown man, all it took was one look at Seohui for heat to rush through his entire body. For 6 long years he dreamed of her, of the day she would finally be his. And he wasn't planning on waiting any longer. He kissed Seohui, and all she could think about was that she had always seen him as family. So did this mean they could never go back to what they were before? It was a normal, suffocatingly hot summer day when she stepped outside to check the mail. A newspaper was already sitting in the mailbox, and Seohui grabbed it right away. She opened it, already knowing exactly what she would find inside, and couldn't resist. On the center spread, she saw a photo of a smiling Cha Seungjo holding the UCL trophy, grinning triumphantly. For years, Seohui subscribed to the daily paper just to keep up with news about Seungjo. Suddenly, Seohui's grandmother appeared, smiling brightly, saying she heard they'd written another article about Seungjo. She wanted to admire how handsome that boy had grown. The old woman couldn't stop gushing over how cute and attractive he'd become. But her granddaughter didn't seem to share that enthusiasm. Even though she and Seungjo grew up in the same house like siblings, now they were more like acquaintances. Once he joined an overseas league, he never returned to their small town. Maybe he was sick of the place. Or, as she secretly thought, maybe he was sick of her. Seohui put on her shoes and stood up. Then her grandmother mentioned hearing that Seungjo was coming back to Korea. When Seohui asked where she heard that, the old woman said she heard it from the boy himself. Seohui immediately pouted. Of course he found time to call Grandma. She didn't want to think about it, so she said she was heading to the bookstore. Grandma suddenly asked if Seungjo had called her too, but Seohui didn't want to talk about him at all. She wished she could forget he even existed. So she ignored the question and simply said she'd be back later because she had errands to run. The name Haeyoung sounded ocean-themed, yet in this dull little town there wasn't even a hint of a sea worth looking at. Locals joked that the dairy industry was so developed here that cows outnumbered people. Seohui still couldn't believe someone actually got paid to come up with such a name. Except for a brief period in her childhood, she had never lived anywhere but Haeyoung, and she liked the quiet, uneventful life of the town. Since she knew nothing but Haeyoung and books, she saw only one path in life: opening a bookstore. At first, business was awful. There were practically no sales, and she barely earned enough to pay the electricity bills. But one day, one of the most popular idols, Lee Haeyeon, came to town to film a travel vlog, and Seohui's bookstore appeared on TV. That brought a wave of visitors, which helped her finally manage her expenses. It was already 8 in the evening as Seohui was tidying up after closing. Suddenly, she heard someone walk in. Without turning around, she apologized and said the store was closed. But when she turned, she froze. Standing in the doorway was a very familiar, but now grown-up figure. Cha Seungjo stepped inside, adjusting his cap, and casually said the place looked much smaller than he remembered. Seohui froze. It had been 6 whole years since they last met, and she had imagined hundreds of times what she would say to him when they finally saw each other again. But when she finally stood before him, the only thing she managed to blurt out was the wrong question. "How did you even know I opened a bookstore?" He sat down in a chair and said it was simple. He saw it in Lee Hae-yeon's vlog. He noticed the coffee machine on the counter and asked if she still made coffee. He looked exhausted and asked her for a cup. But when Seohui sharply told him they were closed, he simply ran a hand through his hair and said he wasn't exactly a customer. She looked confused. In a way, he was right. But what was he now? Family? No. A friend? Hardly. Seungjo first arrived in their village when Seohui was in 6th grade. He came to live with an elderly woman in town. Grandma Jumchon had never been married, but she told everyone the boy was her grandson, which raised a lot of eyebrows. Her friends advised her to send him to an orphanage. She was too old and didn't have the means to raise him. But Grandma Jumchon insisted proudly that he was her grandson. She added him to her family register and sent him to school. But their happiness didn't last long. Because of an old back injury, the woman soon became bedridden. That's when Seohui's grandmother appeared in Seungjo's life. She took his hand, said he would be her grandson just the same, and brought him home. That's where he and Seohui first met. She was eating ice cream and was shocked to see a new member of their little household. The boy was just as surprised, but that's how they became an odd little family. And now, that same boy, after 6 years of silence, was sitting in front of her, calmly drinking coffee. Seohui wondered how much he had changed over the years. She got so flustered she nearly dropped her cup. Finally, he stood up, thanked her for the delicious coffee, and said they should go. When the girl asked, "Where to?" he looked at her like she'd just asked something ridiculous and said, "Where else? Home." The shop door opened, letting in the damp night air. Seohui's cheeks flushed, almost hinting at the feverish summer waiting for the two of them. Soon they were back home, and Seungjo froze the moment he saw the house he'd grown up in. He was shocked by its condition and asked why it looked like that. Seohui didn't understand the problem. Nothing had changed since the day he left. But that was exactly what bothered him. How could nothing change in 6 whole years? Suddenly, the door swung open and Grandma asked who was making all that noise and who had come. Seohui forced a stiff smile and said something unexpected had happened, pointing at Seungjo as if he was the unexpected thing. The moment the old woman realized her beloved Cha Seungjo was standing in front of her, she rushed to hug him, cheering at his return. Seohui watched their emotional reunion and bitterly thought that unlike her, Grandma saw Seungjo pretty often. He called her at least once a week, and whenever he had a match in Korea, he'd always invite her and the neighborhood grannies, giving them the best seats. Seungjo said he was happy to see them again and that he had 2 weeks off because the season had ended. Grandma asked if there was anything special he wanted to eat. The guy sat down, smiling, and said he'd been dreaming of bibimbap noodles. Seohui watched him and thought his warm smile hadn't changed at all, just like their old traditional house. Soon, Grandma set up a whole feast to celebrate Cha Seungjo's return. Even Seohui was surprised by how much she'd managed to cook. The guy immediately went for the noodles he'd been craving for so long. Seohui watched him, noticing how much he had grown and changed. Even though his body looked stronger, he was still on the slim side. After dinner, Seungjo asked why they hadn't repaired the house, since he'd been sending them money regularly. Grandma said the house was perfectly fine, and that she couldn't spend the money her precious boy worked so hard to earn. Meanwhile, Seohui thought about how ever since Seungjo left, there hadn't been any men in the house. Whether it was major repairs or tiny fixes, everything had fallen on her shoulders. The guy was upset. He felt they could have at least made the house more comfortable to live in. He stood to help clean the table, but Grandma protested, saying she wasn't spending a single cent of what he sent. She was saving it to give back to him when he gets married, since they had already used the money Jumchon left him. But Seungjo objected, saying no one but him ever spent that money. He used it for his studies abroad. Now he had plenty of money, so much that he wouldn't be able to spend it all in one lifetime. But Grandma stayed firm. It was still his money, money he worked hard for, and she couldn't just take it and spend it. Seohui agreed with Grandma. She wouldn't take a single cent either. From the moment Seungjo started playing soccer at 9 years old until now, she knew better than anyone how brutal his life had been. Later that night, the girl lay awake, thinking how strange it felt knowing Seungjo was in the room next to hers. 6 years had passed, but part of her still missed him, and another part was still angry at him. She squeezed her eyes shut, telling herself to act like an adult and just go to sleep. But suddenly she heard a knock on her door and jumped. She heard Seungjo's voice. He asked if she was awake and if he could come in. She told him to enter. The door opened and Seungjo peeked inside, asking what she'd been doing. She answered that she was just about to sleep. What else? She noticed how carefully he was looking around her room. So she quickly said that it looked nothing like his new house in England. He thoughtfully agreed. So he told him he didn't need to downplay it. His place was amazing. He asked how she knew that. She replied that there's internet here and she can read the news. His penthouse and everything else looked pretty impressive. Seungjo said he only sleeps there anyway, and continued observing her room while she grew more and more embarrassed. She sat there, wondering why he suddenly came back home. Why come into her room now? She used to think she knew him better than anyone. But right now it felt like she didn't know him at all, and tears welled up in her eyes. Suddenly his gaze stopped on something, and his eyes widened in surprise. He saw a photo of himself pinned to her wall, and asked if that was really him, and why she still kept it there. Seohui looked at him, remembering the day that photo was taken. That match had meant everything to Seungjo, and probably to all of them. Calmly, she said she kept the picture just in case she ever started forgetting his face. She felt it was getting harder to hold back tears, and began rambling that she was afraid that one day she'd grow old and forget what Cha Seungjo looked like, since he was always too busy even to call her. His shoulders and back tensed, and without turning around, he suddenly asked if she missed him. So he let out a bitter laugh. Was he seriously asking her that right now? If she missed him? They used to be together all the time. They spent all their free time side by side. They weren't related by blood, but she considered him her real family. And now, after disappearing for years, he was asking if she had missed him? Sadness and anger mixed inside her, and she snapped that of course she had missed him. Missed him like crazy. How could she not? Tears streamed down her cheeks as she asked if he was really mad at her. Why did he push her away? Why hadn't he answered a single call or message from her? Finally, she burst out, asking if he honestly thought that now, when he'd become famous, she'd cling to him like some kind of leech. Why did he still call her grandmother, but never her? Had he stopped liking her? So he began pounding on his chest, demanding to know if he wanted her to see him only through news articles, as if he were a complete stranger to her. And why had he shown up so suddenly now? Seungjo stayed silent, letting her release everything she'd been holding inside. When she calmed down a little, still sobbing, she asked why he came back now, right when she'd finally stopped feeling anything for him and had begun living peacefully again. She eventually pulled herself together and stepped back. She apologized for her behavior. But suddenly, Seungjo leaned close to her ear and quietly asked who she thought missed the other more, him or her. He looked straight into her eyes and admitted he thought he would lose his mind from missing her. Her cheeks flushed at his words. Caught off guard, she asked why, if that was true, he never called her. He answered that she was the one who told him he needed to grow up. If he had stayed around her, she'd never stop seeing him as a kid. So he had to wait for the moment she'd finally see him differently, for the moment he truly grew up. Seungjo held her gaze and asked her not to run away from him this time like she did that day. He gently brushed her cheek and said he'd kept his promise. He'd held himself back all these years. The next moment, his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. Their faces were suddenly too close. 6 years is enough. Don't tell me to wait any longer, Seungjo said. And then their lips met in the long-awaited, deeply desired kiss. Seohui's head spun. Everything around her seemed to fade away. But suddenly she pushed him away. She always saw him as family, so what were they now? She burned with shame, thinking she should have stopped him before he kissed her. Everything felt tangled now. But none of this scared Seungjo. He said he was already 24, he'd finished military service, and he'd earned more money than he ever dreamed of. One thing hadn't changed. She had always been in his heart. He gently lifted her chin. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at him. Was he going to kiss her again? But then he suddenly said he'd stop for today, and that they had plenty of time ahead. Still sitting there, Seohui didn't understand what he meant, and asked what "for today" was supposed to mean. As he walked out of her room, Seungjo smiled and told her to lock the door, because he was terribly impatient and afraid he wouldn't be able to control himself. 6 years ago, Seungjo had been studying and living in a dorm in Daegu, but he still came home every week, arriving just to stay one night and leaving again Sunday at noon. Watching him, she always wondered why he'd make that exhausting trip every single week just to spend one day at home. He must have been so worn out from training. Worried, she asked if he needed anything. She could help, she had just gotten her paycheck, but he snapped at her to stop. She missed the way he called her Nuna when they were younger, but lately he only used her name. She felt like he was drawing some invisible line between them. Suddenly, Seungjo gave her a strange look and said she really needed to buy some new clothes. She was shocked and asked if her clothes looked weird or something. But the next second, he took off his track jacket and tossed it at her, telling her to put it on. He scolded her for dressing too lightly and asked if she really went to university dressed like that. His ears turned red. He didn't want to expose himself, but he said her clothes were too revealing. He couldn't exactly tell her that her modest dress still highlighted her figure a little too well. Flustered, he stood up so she wouldn't notice his reaction and muttered that someone needed to keep an eye on her. She didn't notice his embarrassment at all. Instead, she pointed out how tall he'd gotten. She even said he was taller than all the guys in her department. Seungjo tensed and asked why she suddenly brought up her classmates. Had one of them confessed to her? But Seohui just ruffled his hair and said her life was too boring for that, suggesting they talk about him instead. He protested, saying he was interested in everything about her. She sighed, saying her life was nothing but school and work every day. But he said someone from the football association was supposed to come watch him play that week. How did it go? Seungjo hesitated and said it was nothing special. One of the scouts asked if he'd be interested in going abroad to train. Hearing that, she was shocked and excited. Was her friend really being offered an opportunity overseas? Modestly, he explained that the scouts had seen him play in Seoul and invited him to join a youth team. They'd also seen him at the U20 World Cup. But for some reason, he didn't look happy, even though this was everything he'd worked toward. Then he said the youth team he was invited to join was Jarlington, based in England. Hearing that, Seohui felt her heart drop to the floor. Other players had parents who came to every match and supported them, but Seungjo had no parents. No matter how much Seohui and her grandmother tried, it wasn't the same. Still, he never stopped training in silence. It hurt her, but she knew she couldn't show it. So she asked if that wasn't amazing news. He said it probably was. Then she joyfully threw her arms around him, hugging and congratulating him. She told him it was absolutely brilliant news. There was sadness inside her, but she tried her best to smile, hugging him and supporting him, because she knew how hard he'd worked for this. Feeling her body so close, the way she pressed against him made him blush. Suddenly, he asked if maybe he shouldn't go. So he didn't even realize what he meant. He looked into her eyes and asked if maybe he shouldn't leave for England. She immediately pulled back and asked what he was talking about. Did he think he'd get an even better offer? Seungjo looked straight at her and said that wasn't the point at all, and that he might never get a better offer than this one. His cheeks were burning, but he still gathered the courage to ask if Lee Seohui would go with him. For a few long moments, a heavy silence fell between them, broken only by the sound of rain reminding them that time hadn't stopped. Finally, Seohui asked how she was supposed to go with him. She had school too, and besides, there was the financial issue. Worried, she guessed that it must have been too hard for him living alone in the dorm, and maybe he wanted someone familiar with him in England. Seungjo rubbed his face tiredly and said that wasn't it at all. If not that, then why did he suddenly ask her to come? He finally snapped and blurted out that he just didn't want to be apart from her. But Seohui understood it differently. She thought that even with her and her grandmother around, he still felt lonely. So she took his hand and tried to comfort him, saying that no matter what, they were a family, and she and her grandmother would visit him often and call him every day. Suddenly, he pulled his hand away and shouted in frustration that he wasn't lonely or anything like that. She'd completely misunderstood him. When he grabbed her hand again, she panicked and asked what was wrong. Had she said something she shouldn't have? Leaning in, Seungjo said that even now there were tons of useless idiots hovering around her. What would happen when he left for England? He worried about her. Then he said he couldn't stand the idea of some jerk being around her, so she needed to listen very carefully to what he was about to say. Without looking away, Seungjo confessed that he liked her. And he didn't mean family affection. He meant he liked her as a woman. He traced his finger gently across her lower lip, and while she sat there completely stunned, he admitted that just looking at her made his whole body shake and his throat go dry. Seungjo leaned even closer, their lips almost touching, and said it was time for her to stop with the whole Nuna things, because he stopped seeing her as just a Nuna long ago. So he lowered her head and whispered that she had no idea he felt that way. He answered quietly that of course she didn't. He'd always hidden it from her. She said they'd always been siblings. How could he say something like that? Seungjo stood and asked, who exactly said they were siblings? Where had she ever seen siblings who weren't related by blood or registered as one family? Standing in front of her, leaning down again, he smiled and said they were just two people who lived together, and not even anymore. But she was confused and could only say that he was younger than her. He scoffed and replied, that's exactly why he never confessed, because he knew she'd react like this. And that was why he couldn't go to England and leave her behind. So he knew how many thousands upon thousands of hours he'd spent sweating and training with a soccer ball. Unlike her, who had nothing, he had soccer. She clenched her fists. Was he really willing to throw that away because of her? She thought he was acting purely on emotion, and she had to help him choose his future, not follow his impulses. So even though her heart was breaking into pieces, she firmly told him that this was exactly why she still saw him as a kid. Her words cut like a blade. Was he really going to throw away a once-in-a-lifetime chance at a better life for a woman who would never be interested in him that way? That was why she always thought he was stupid. And if he didn't go to England, she never wanted to see him again. He called her name, but she looked at him sharply and told him not to call her that. Just because he didn't want to go to England didn't mean she'd suddenly accept him as anything other than her younger brother. That's how it was before, and that's how it would always be. But her words didn't scare him. He asked, what about when I'm older and famous? If I still love you then, will you change your mind? She pushed his hand away and yelled that he had to go, and he knew it just as well as she did. He couldn't give up over something like this. So he bit her lip, knowing she would regret it for the rest of her life if she failed to convince him to leave. Finally, he straightened up and said sharply that he understood. He would take the offer. He grabbed his things and walked out of the yard without looking back. So he watched him go, pain tearing through her chest. But she knew she'd made the right decision. And so 6 years passed, and she truly never expected that this boy would still be in love with her. She didn't know what to do now. Morning finally came, and she stretched lazily despite having dreamt of Seungjo all night. Stepping into the yard, she saw him training with a ball, just like always, and said that neither he nor his habits had changed. He looked at her and said he could say the same about her. So he asked what exactly he meant. Seungjo just smiled and said, a lot of things. She then asked where he trained like this in the mornings, in England. And he said, on the practice field. Seohui suddenly remembered seeing that in a documentary. He froze and asked her to repeat that. Blushing, she repeated that she'd watched a documentary about him, unless she wasn't supposed to. But he actually looked thrilled. Of course she was allowed to watch it. He just didn't know she'd want to. His smile was so warm and his lips so soft-looking that she involuntarily stared at him. She froze, remembering their kiss from last night, and felt her whole body tremble. Then she scolded herself for even thinking like that. Seungjo noticed her trembling and asked if she was cold. Then he draped his jacket over her shoulders and said that even if it was July, mornings could still be chilly. As he zipped the jacket for her, his eyes traced her figure without looking away. Blushing, Seohui asked what was wrong. Why was he looking at her like that? Seungjo suddenly leaned in so close that the girl flinched, afraid he was about to kiss her again right then and there. But instead, he studied her face carefully and asked if it was just him, or had she not slept at all last night. She blushed, got irritated, and snapped that of course she hadn't slept. How could she sleep after what happened? And whose fault was that? The guy beamed, looking genuinely happy, and said that was just perfect. That made Seohui even angrier, and she asked if he seriously found it funny that she'd been deprived of sleep. He nodded. He grabbed his sports bag and, still smiling, said that it amused him how she was so worked up over one sleepless night because of him, while he had been losing sleep because of her for 10 years. She turned bright red and was speechless. How could someone say something like that so casually? Was this really the same Seungjo she used to know? He had definitely changed. Soon they were sitting at a table full of dishes just like the night before. Seohui felt uncomfortable, exactly as she expected. Her grandmother was fussing even more than usual, cooking a whole feast to please Seungjo, who kept trying to tell the old lady she had already done more than enough. But Grandma wouldn't listen and insisted on bringing out more and more food. The guy looked overwhelmed. Moments later, more side dishes appeared on the table, and Grandma asked when he planned on going back to England. Meanwhile, Seohui was trying not to look at him and simply eat. She was sure he'd be leaving soon, maybe even tomorrow. But when he cheerfully answered that he'd come for 2 full weeks, the girl froze, chopsticks suspended in the air. She finally broke her silence and asked if she'd heard correctly. Was he leaving in 2 weeks and not sooner? Grandma was thrilled and asked whether he planned to stay in Haeyoung the whole time or go to Seoul. He answered that he planned to stay home. Seohui was shocked and couldn't help asking what he planned to do for 2 whole weeks in their tiny town. Seungjo looked completely innocent and asked what she meant. He was obviously going to relax. She didn't stop and asked again where exactly he planned to do that. Seungjo still looked confused and said, "Here, of course. At home." That possibility did not sit well with Seohui. She stared at him tensely and clarified, "In our house?" Now he was clearly amused and replied, "In our house," putting special emphasis on our, making sure she understood. She wasn't escaping him. So he bit her lip, thinking about how the house hadn't changed at all since he left. His room and his things, everything was still the same. So it wouldn't be strange for him to stay, but at the same time, everything was different now, after what happened last night. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden sound of chopsticks hitting the floor. Grandma had dropped hers, covering her mouth as she asked why her precious boy hadn't warned her about his plans sooner. Unfortunately, she had already planned a 3-day trip to Taiwan. Seohui's scream of horror was so loud it could probably be heard outside. She was shocked. Why hadn't Grandma told her? The old lady asked why her granddaughter was yelling. She had told her she'd be going on a trip with her grannies, hadn't she? But now she didn't know what to do. Her dear Seungjo had returned after so long, and she was supposed to leave for 4 nights and 5 days. Maybe she shouldn't go. She just couldn't. So he crossed her arms, silently agreeing. Grandma should not leave these 2 alone in one house. But then Seungjo casually said Grandma should just go and come back afterward. After all, it was only 5 days, and he would still be home for a whole week after she returned. The old lady hesitated, but he kept reassuring her, telling her she needed the trip, needed to eat delicious food with her grannies, and should bring souvenirs for him and Seohui. But suddenly, Grandma declared she couldn't go because she needed to warn him. Seohui was terrible at cooking, and she feared her precious boy would starve to death. But Seungjo grinned again and told her not to worry. He was actually very good at cooking. He winked and explained that since he lived alone and needed to eat properly, he'd gotten really good at it. Then he cast a strange look at Seohui and added that he was already an adult. The girl decided that if she argued, it would only make things worse. So she told Grandma not to worry. They could always order takeout. Then the guy reassured Grandma again, telling her that when she came back, she could cook for him as much as she wanted. Suddenly, he shot a sly glance at Seohui and added that it was only 5 days and 4 nights. What could possibly happen? After dinner, the girl was washing dishes, and he offered to help. After drying the plates, he asked if he could put them on the top shelf. But Seohui told him that while he could reach just fine, she couldn't get to that shelf without a step stool, so it was better not to put them there. He looked embarrassed, realizing he hadn't thought of that, and apologized. She said it was fine, no need to apologize over dishes, and continued washing. Suddenly, Seungjo took her hand and asked if she'd been eating well. Why was she so skinny? Seohui felt awkward and asked what he was doing. Why was he grabbing her hand when Grandma could see them? But he looked amused again and told her to stop panicking. Grandma wouldn't be surprised to see him holding her hand. He kept stroking her wrist, feeling her hand tremble, and asked why she was acting so surprised. He smirked again and said that this was nothing. He planned to do much more than that. Later. Then he turned and headed to his room, leaving Seohui standing there, stunned, mouth hanging open. She sank to the floor, resting her head on her knees, letting out a long sigh. She realized the next 2 weeks were going to be rough. The next morning, Seohui was already heading out for work, but when she stepped onto the porch, she froze in shock. Seungjo was standing in the yard as if he'd been waiting for her, and she asked where he was headed. He answered, "To the bookstore." She couldn't quite process that and asked again. Was he seriously going to the bookstore? Her bookstore? Seungjo asked if she had a problem with that, or if he wasn't allowed to go with her. As she put on her shoes, she muttered that no, he couldn't. He looked stunned and asked, why not? Seohui didn't want to sound rude, but she knew that if he went with her, it would definitely stir up a commotion and crowds outside the store. But what worried her even more, something she couldn't tell him, was that she wasn't sure she'd be able to handle being so close to him in such a small space. She tried to convince him to stay home and just rest, but Seungjo had already grabbed her bag and said he hadn't come all this way just to relax in Haeyoung. Then what had he come for? He was confusing the life out of her. Seungjo asked if she was seriously asking because she really didn't know. She looked genuinely puzzled, but he just smiled and said he wasn't sure whether she was pretending not to understand or if she really didn't. Either way, he didn't want to talk about it right now and headed for the door. Meanwhile, Seohui stood there flustered, trying to convince herself she truly didn't understand his motives. And soon enough, just as she expected, her bookstore fell into complete chaos. It all started when they accidentally ran into the village chief right outside her store. A moment earlier, she and Seungjo had walked up to the door, and while she was unlocking it, an elderly man spotted them. Suddenly, he yelled across the street, unable to believe his eyes. Was that really Cha Seungjo himself? Seohui realized her tough day had officially begun. Meanwhile, Seungjo politely greeted the chief and confirmed that yes, it was him. The man was shocked to see him. He was thrilled and immediately asked when he'd returned. Seohui quickly stepped in, trying to block the man's view of Seungjo, and blurted out that he'd arrived yesterday. The chief kept praising him and asking questions that Seohui answered on his behalf as fast as she could. Finally, she announced he'd be staying until the end of next week. The chief couldn't hold back anymore and demanded to know why Seohui was answering for him and not letting them talk. Seohui was desperate. She'd hoped to shorten their conversation, but it looked like this old man had other plans. He seemed annoyed that she was interfering. But Seohui was worried that the longer they stood outside, the sooner the whole village would find out Seungjo was here. The old man finally got to Seungjo and dragged him into a long conversation full of compliments. So he thought at least she tried. And then, just 15 minutes later, the chief's voice echoed through the village loudspeaker. He joyfully announced that the pride of their hometown, Cha Seungjo, had returned to Haeyoung yesterday. And as if that wasn't enough, he added that anyone who wanted to greet him could come to Lee Seohui's bookstore. So he panicked and told Seungjo to run away immediately. But he didn't understand why she was acting so weird and staring out the window. Seohui answered that people would start flooding in any minute and that the coast was clear right now. He needed to leave. To her shock, he said everything was fine and he didn't see the problem. She was dumbfounded. Did he actually want to sign autographs all day long? Seungjo smiled and said he didn't mind. If people wanted to come greet him, it wasn't difficult for him to be kind and sign a few things. Soon a bunch of local kids from the soccer team rushed to the store, all at once and pushing their soccer balls at him for autograph, while new lines kept forming. So he sat nearby with her friend. To her, this whole thing felt like absolute madness. Kim Hyun-ji, her middle school classmate, agreed with her. But she wasn't talking about the crowd. She meant how good Seungjo looked. Had he always been this charming? After seeing so many local guys with potato heads, Seungjo looked like a blessing from above. So he tried to say that their good old Cha Seungjo had always been nice. But Hyun-ji said she didn't believe her friend saw him as just a kid. He'd stopped being just nice a long time ago. He'd become a very attractive young man who deserved to be called Mr. Seungjo. So he blushed, realizing she'd gotten so used to thinking about him a certain way that maybe it did sound weird now. Suddenly, Hyun-ji asked if he had a girlfriend, and so he remembered the night before. The things he'd done and the way he'd spoken left no doubt. He was definitely experienced with women. She said he was probably single right now. Looking at him, Kim Hyun-ji couldn't believe a guy that handsome, with a body like that, was still unattached. So he suggested that maybe he was just too busy with training. He was a professional athlete, after all. But her friend laughed and said, not to be ridiculous. Even during wartime, babies still get born. She stretched and said that if not now, then sooner or later some girl was definitely going to catch him. Honestly, he was too good to let slip away. Then she suddenly asked Seohui why she hadn't snagged him for herself. Seohui turned bright red and yelled, demanding to know what nonsense her friend was spouting. At that exact moment, she met Seungjo's eyes. Had he been watching her this entire time? Meanwhile, Hyun-ji asked what was so wrong with the idea. So he didn't have a boyfriend. She never really had one. Was she planning to stay a rookie in romance forever? So he slapped her friend's leg and said that first of all, she and Seungjo were family. What was Hyun-ji even talking about? Her friend replied that if Seohui married him, then they'd become real family, because they weren't actually related. Seohui shouted back that she'd practically raised this guy. Seungjo was basically a kid she'd brought up herself. But to Hyun-ji, that didn't sound strange at all. She asked, "So what? Have you ever seen a guy more attractive than him?" So he was at her limit and demanded that she stop. She wasn't joking. This needed to end. Hyun-ji stood in front of her and said she understood, but why get so worked up? And the more Seohui denied the obvious, the more suspicious it looked. Even though she'd brought it up, she believed it was pointless. Seohui didn't date and lived alone. Seohui leaned back, thinking over her friend's words. Yes, she was comfortable as she was, and maybe Hyun-ji was right. A bit later, Seohui went back to working in the bookstore when she heard someone walk in. It turned out to be Lee Seohui, her high school classmate, now the local veterinarian. He helped her pick up a fallen book and said she looked exhausted. Had business been crazy today? He'd heard Cha Seungjo was back. Was it true? With a heavy sigh, she said it was. But since he didn't see him around, she explained that Seungjo had already left. Lee Seohui was genuinely disappointed. He really wanted to see him, but because of work, he'd missed the chance. So he reassured him that Seungjo would come by again soon. She offered him coffee, but he said that more than coffee, he wanted lunch. He was starving. Hearing that, Seohui asked if he hadn't eaten yet, and he admitted he hadn't even had breakfast. Then he suggested they go grab something together. Seohui wondered if she could close the bookstore for a short while. When she finally agreed, the guy smiled brightly. She hung a "Be right back" sign on the door and headed out for lunch, hoping everything would be fine. Soon after they grabbed a bite and were heading back, Sohee asked Sunyu if he was returning to the hospital. He said he still needed to drive out to the ranch to check on the cow. She worried he might be too tired for such a long drive, especially after working until sunset. Sunyu admitted he was definitely tired, but he had to go. So he told him he needed to be extra careful and make sure he didn't fall asleep at the wheel. The guy smiled. Her concern felt really nice. He looked at her and asked if she wanted to stay on the phone with him while he drove. That way, he definitely wouldn't fall asleep. So he was surprised and asked if he really wanted to stay on the phone with her. He immediately said that if she was busy, it was totally fine. He added that hearing her voice would help him stay awake. So he blushed and asked if it wouldn't be better to just turn on the radio. Sunyu turned back to her, smiling again, and said he preferred her voice. Soon they reached the bookstore, when Sunyu spotted a guy sitting nearby. He finally recognized him as Seungjo and lit up. Seungjo walked over and, without even saying hello, immediately asked where the two of them were coming from. Seohui felt a little awkward, but answered that they had just gone out for lunch. The guy eyed Sunyu suspiciously and asked who he was. Lee Seohui gave him a friendly smile and introduced himself, saying it was an honor to meet Seungjo. Seungjo greeted him back but stayed cold and distant. Sunyu smiled and admitted he was a big fan. He told him he also played soccer in middle school and still coached an elementary school team on weekends. He said he knew Seungjo must be very busy, but if he ever had time, he and the kids would be thrilled if the famous soccer player stopped by. When Seungjo said, "Sure, no problem. Just tell me the time and place," Sunyu was pleasantly surprised and grateful. Then he pulled a magazine with Seungjo's photo from his bag and, eyes shining, asked if he could get an autograph. While the soccer star was signing, Sunyu suddenly started telling him that back in high school, Sohee used to say she had a younger brother who played soccer. He never imagined she meant Seungjo. Seungjo snapped that he was never her younger brother. Where had the guy ever seen a younger brother who wasn't even related by blood? Sunyu felt awkward and said he knew they were siblings not by blood, but through their relationship. Seungjo looked at Sohee and said she sometimes said very funny things. Anyway, they weren't siblings and not like siblings, and he wasn't her younger brother. They were just strangers, the same way Sohee and Sunyu were strangers. Seungjo asked what he should write on the magazine. Who was he signing it for? He couldn't just write, "For my friend Lee Seohui," right? The guy replied that his name was Lee Sunyu, and that it might sound a little unusual. Sunyu waved goodbye, thanking the soccer player for the autograph. After that, Seungjo lay down on a bench, and Sohee told him maybe he should head home. She couldn't understand why he kept being stubborn. Wasn't he exhausted from all the attention all day? Still, he wasn't a kid anymore and could decide for himself. So she turned and went back inside the store. A few hours later, Seungjo was still lying there with a book covering his face, just resting. Seohui finished work, stepped outside, and told him the store was closed and it was time to go home. They were walking home, and so he kept thinking that this unusually long day was finally coming to an end. It amazed her how one person could shake up her boring life so much in just a single day. They were quietly walking when they suddenly heard the voices of local grandmas who recognized Seungjo and cheered at his return. The elderly ladies instantly surrounded him, throwing dozens of questions at him. Seohui let out a heavy sigh and hurried away. It felt like this day would never end. Seungjo noticed her walking off and quickly caught up, saying they should head home together. But she folded her arms and refused. She didn't want to be near him. All the fuss around him was driving her crazy. He could go home on his own. It wasn't like he didn't know the way. He looked hurt and said she'd changed. She used to say being with him was the best thing in the world. Seohui snapped back that was years ago. Seungjo repeated that she really had changed, but he wasn't planning on giving up. When he grabbed her hand, she yelled, asking what the hell he was doing. People were staring. But he only smiled and asked, who cared? They were just holding hands. Was that illegal or something? So he knew he was right, But still, there was something about a grown man and woman holding hands that felt different. And suddenly she wondered why she was reacting so strongly. She'd always called him family and never thought of their relationship as anything between a man and a woman. Out of nowhere, Seungjo asked if she was scared someone would see them. Was she worried because of Lee Seohui? So he immediately asked why he even mentioned that guy. What did he have to do with anything? Seungjo said that unless it was because of him, she had no reason to be that shocked or worried. So he told him she had no idea what nonsense he was imagining, but he was completely wrong. But Seungjo replied that he knew Sunyu had confessed his feelings to her back in high school. Seohui was stunned. She had forgotten that it actually happened. It had been so long. She shook her head and said it was over 10 years ago, so why did he even remember something like that? Seungjo said he remembered everything about her, and he couldn't forget the name of the guy who confessed to her. Still holding her hand, he added that he even remembered her saying Seonyu was smart and kind. Seohui blushed and replied that nothing ever happened between them, and it was all in the past. There was no chance that a man still loved a woman he confessed to more than 10 years ago. But Seungjo looked serious and said it was absolutely possible. He himself was still in love with her. She turned away, not wanting to hear any more, insisting that none of this had anything to do with Lee Seohui. He didn't let it go. He turned her toward him and said he saw perfectly well how that guy stared at her, and he was sure he still loved her. Seohui let out a shocked breath. She honestly hadn't noticed anything like that, and said there had never been anything between them. Seungjo smiled and said he knew, and he believed her. They continued walking home, and for some reason she couldn't help thinking how much she'd missed his bright smile. She hadn't even considered pulling her hand out of his big, warm one. Later that evening, Seohui helped her grandmother pack her suitcase, making sure she didn't forget anything she might need. Seohui asked if her grandmother had written down her granddaughter's contact info and the phone number of the Korean consul in Taiwan. The old woman smiled kindly and said she had. When Seohui was little, she always had to look up at her grandmother. She'd always dreamed of growing up so she could stand beside her grandmother as an equal. Now looking at her, Seohui couldn't understand when her grandmother had suddenly become so small. Her figure looked tiny. She wanted to go to the airport with her to make sure everything would be okay. But the old woman grumbled, saying Seohui shouldn't be silly. What could possibly happen when she'd be traveling with her friends? Still, Seohui felt uneasy, and her grandmother tried to calm her down, saying she would call if anything happened. The grandmother wanted her granddaughter to stop worrying about her and take better care of her own needs. Even though she was only leaving for 5 days and 4 nights, she was full of worry and cooked several days' worth of food. So he was amazed where her grandmother suddenly got so much energy to cook that much. Looking at yet another giant pot, Seohui asked if her grandmother was sure she wasn't planning to stay a whole month in Taiwan. Maybe it was time for her to stop and rest before the trip? But the old woman scoffed. What was the girl talking about? She was only halfway done cooking. She worried, and the only thing she could do was make sure they had enough food while she was gone. And she told Seohui not to forget to feed Seungjo well. Seohui smiled and said she'd make sure he gained 3 extra kilos by the time Grandma came back. In the end, she couldn't stop her grandmother, and they cooked until dawn. Now they were standing outside waiting for the ride. Suddenly, the grandmother said the two of them really should go to Suncheonggol someday. They served unbelievably good duck there. So he asked if that was the place 40 minutes away. The woman said yes, that exact place, and that their duck was the best she'd ever had. So he didn't understand why they needed to go there when the fridge was already full of food, and considering it was summer, it would spoil fast. At the same time, Seungjo answered obediently that they would definitely go there to eat. So he wanted to object, but the car picking up her grandmother arrived just then. Her grandmother's friends were already inside, smiling and joking. They had all bought matching heart-shaped sunglasses. Seohui stared at them in surprise and thought they looked so young and happy. The grandmother said goodbye to her granddaughter, telling her not to argue with Seungjo and promising to call for any reason if something happened. The guy asked the driver to take care of these ladies, and the man smiled, saying he could count on him. When the car drove off, Seohui and Seungjo watched it for a while. And the girl said that the morning had been way too hectic. She was worried about whether everything would be all right with her grandmother, but her thoughts were interrupted by Seungjo. He smiled slyly at her and said that now it was just the two of them left in this house. The girl could only sigh and think that she needed to keep her sanity by all means for the next 5 days and 4 nights. A little later, Seohui and Seungjo were at work. The girl was working while the guy simply sat and read a book. She constantly threw anxious glances his way, wondering if everything would be okay between them while they were alone. The morning had gone smoothly after all. From the outside, it seemed like Seungjo was behaving as usual, just quietly sitting and reading. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and asked why she kept staring at him. The girl replied that she was just curious if he was planning to go home. The guy answered that if she was here, what would he be doing in a house where she wasn't? Seohui was surprised. Did he mean he was planning to stay here all the time? Maybe he wanted to visit his friends. Just at that moment, Lee Seohui walked into the store and greeted them. He looked thirsty, so the girl asked if he wanted some water since it was so hot outside. The guy smiled shyly and replied that he was fine and still needed to get to his next meeting. Finally, he noticed Seungjo and greeted him happily. But the football player only looked at him and then turned his eyes back away. The girl asked what brought him here. The guy replied that she hadn't answered his text about tonight. Seohui didn't understand what he meant, so the guy grabbed a calendar to show her what day it was. It was July 15th, the day of the class reunion. The girl immediately admitted she had completely forgotten about it. She had forgotten that they met around this time every year, although fewer and fewer people attended each year. Seohui asked if she would come. He hoped she would. Seohui wondered if she really needed to go. Honestly, everyone she would see there she already saw every day. They were either neighbors or people she met around town. Then Seohui added that he heard even Do-hwa was planning to come. The girl remembered her former classmate. She had a cute face but a terrible personality. Seohui already didn't want to go, and now she was even more upset, realizing she wanted to avoid meeting Do-hwa. Besides, Kim Yeon-ji clearly wouldn't come, as she had complained about being completely overloaded at work. She hesitated until her eyes caught a familiar face. Seungjo seemed to be watching them closely and listening to their conversation. And suddenly, the girl had a realization. Wait a minute. If she didn't go to the reunion, it meant she would spend the entire day alone with Seungjo. Seohui saw the expression on her face and said he understood. She probably couldn't go. After all, it wouldn't feel right to leave Seungjo alone at home, especially since it was his first time visiting after so many years. Seungjo also seemed to understand what that meant for Seohui, and he was already smiling rather tearfully. The girl remembered how he came into her room that night and what he said about his patience. So she realized that staying alone with him definitely wasn't an option. Yes, she couldn't avoid him forever, but at least the reunion was a chance to spend one evening away from him and reduce their time together. So, to both guys' surprise, she announced that she would definitely go. Lee Seohui lit up with joy right away. He couldn't believe the girl would come after all. And although Seohui didn't share his enthusiasm at all, she forced a smile and tried to say that it would be very fun. Later that evening, the girl sat among her former classmates and confirmed that a place you don't want to go to is a place you definitely shouldn't go. She didn't enjoy listening to endless stories about failed relationships and breathing in cigarette smoke. Even though smoking was prohibited inside, the owner was one of the guy's father, so they turned a blind eye. So he sat there in a foul mood, berating herself once again. She knew she shouldn't have come. Suddenly, a displeased female voice complained that Haeyoung hadn't changed at all, and that she knew she shouldn't have come here. Do-hwa sat there bored, asking what the point was of living in a backwater like this. There wasn't even a proper shopping mall here. The girl acted terribly stuck up and complained about the cigarette smoke, saying she didn't know what she had expected by coming. In the end, she just stood up and left. Seohui lowered her head. It hurt to hear such things about her beloved town. All she could do was drink mug after mug. A little later, the girl walked out of the place, slightly staggering. Everything around her was spinning, and she thought it was because she hadn't drunk in a long time. Suddenly, she stumbled and felt herself losing balance, but didn't even have time to scream. Someone caught her by the arm just in time to keep her from falling. It turned out to be Lee Seohui. He was worried about her and said he would walk her home. But the girl immediately pulled her hand away and said it wasn't necessary. She declared she could get home with her eyes closed and that he should worry about getting home himself. Seonyu felt a little hurt, thinking that no matter what he did, Lee Seohui still wouldn't let him get any closer. Watching her walk away, he sadly thought that no matter how hard he tried, she never let down the walls she herself had built. Seohui walked home calmly and wasn't worried, even though it was already pretty late. Suddenly she stopped, surprised. Seungjo was standing by the gate, waiting for her. When he noticed her, he gave her a stern look. She walked up and asked what he was doing there, and he answered that she came home a bit late. Taking her bag, he said he had been worried and had waited for her to come back. So he felt embarrassed and uneasy. She had hoped she could avoid seeing him tonight, but here he was, and she knew she couldn't hide from him. Finally accepting it, she just walked inside. The fan blades spun, pushing away the heavy summer air. The girl asked why Seungjo waited for her outside in such heat. He handed her a bottle of water and instead said it was already past midnight. Why was she walking home completely alone? Didn't she realize how dangerous that was? They sat on the porch, and Seungjo was way too close as he told her he had been worried about her. The girl laughed and asked if he was seriously scolding her right now. With a tired sigh, she lay back and said nothing would have happened to her. She could take care of herself. She was an adult. She didn't understand why he was so worried. She'd always been fine. Seungjo replied that he knew she had a sharp tongue and could handle anything on her own. Even him. After a short pause, he added that he wasn't just worried about her. He was worried someone might snatch her up. The thought made the girl laugh, and she jokingly asked who on earth would snatch her up. There wasn't anyone like that in this town. Then she sobered up a bit, thinking that maybe there was no one, except Cha Seungjo himself. Then she laughed again, saying he was being ridiculous, talking like someone might snatch a girl like her. The guy lay down beside her but didn't share her amusement. He wished her words were actually true. He wished no one but him knew who Lee Seohui really was. Once, lying in his dorm room after a game, he had thought about her. He wondered what kind of person might end up beside her, and whether she would feel lonely without him, without Seungjo. Turning toward her, he admitted that on one hand, he hoped Seohui wasn't lonely, but another part of him desperately wanted her to feel lonely because he wasn't there. At times, he felt an incredibly selfish desire for absolutely no one to be beside her. So he listened to his confession and thought about how lonely she really felt. Terribly lonely. Because Cha Seungjo wasn't beside her. She kept replaying the moment in her head when he confessed his feelings to her. What would have happened if she had been wiser back then? Instead of saying all those hurtful, stupid things, she could have spared him the pain. And then she wouldn't have to miss him so much now. But even now, she couldn't bring herself to admit how lonely she had felt without him, because saying things she couldn't take responsibility for would only hurt them both. Suddenly, Seungjo reached toward her hair and said she smelled like cigarettes. She replied that the guys around her had been smoking. The guy asked if Lee Seohui smoked too, and she said yes. Then Seungjo said that's why he was better than Seohui, because he didn't smoke. And passive smoking was really bad for a girl. So he laughed and asked if he really thought not smoking gave him some kind of advantage. He said that if it helped him win her over, then yeah, he'd use anything he could. The girl flicked his nose with her finger and said, he already had plenty of advantages. Why would he choose this one? Encouraged, Seungjo asked what advantages she meant. And the girl began listing them. He was good at soccer, well-mannered, and very handsome. She counted them off on her fingers in an adorable way, thinking that the more she considered it, the more she realized Seungjo had grown into a truly admirable man. Finally, she simply said, "He was the best." The guy looked at her with a satisfied smile. Hope kept blooming inside him again and again. But then Seohui suddenly said that this was exactly why someone like her shouldn't be liked by someone like him. She admitted she liked him too, but not quite in the same way, and that he probably didn't feel the same for her anymore either. She said it was more like some kind of fantasy on his part. Seungjo stood up and told her not to talk about his feelings so carelessly. He leaned over her, shadowing her with his body. Hurt burned inside him, as he asked if she really thought she knew everything about his real feelings. Their eyes met, and he confessed that every time he looked at her, all he could think about was kissing her and making her his. Did she really think that just a moment of curiosity or some silly teenage fantasy would make him act like a madman, thinking such things about her? He was dead serious, and he told her to listen to him very carefully. He would never act like this unless he'd made up his mind completely. Seungjo brought his face very close to hers and said that if he was really as good as she said, then she should give him at least one chance. The girl didn't even have time to object before their lips met in a slow, aching kiss. So he felt her head spin all over again, but some small part of her still refused to give in to that tempting feeling. Seungjo finally pulled away and said she needed to let him try at least once. If after that she still couldn't see a man in him, then he would give up. Wow, that was honestly such an emotional ride. The slow burn tension, the years of distance, and then that intense reunion. It really hits different. I love how this story takes something as innocent as growing up together and turns it into a deep, complicated, almost forbidden kind of love. And honestly, I totally get Seungjo. He left broken-hearted, worked insanely hard, and came back stronger. Not just for success, but for the girl he never stopped loving. And now he's finally brave enough to say, "Look at me as a man." That's powerful. Seohui's side is just as real. She's torn between the past and what she's starting to feel now. And that confusion? That's what makes their chemistry feel so raw and dangerous. So yeah, if you love second-chance romance, unresolved feelings, and that irresistible "we were never really just family" vibe, this manhwa is definitely for you. And I seriously cannot wait to see what happens next. And if you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. It really helps the channel grow, and your support means so much and keeps me motivated to bring you more amazing stories.